The Cashback Wars, how the cashback business works and how HeyMax beats it. Here is the commissioned question, stated plainly. ShopBack gives people cash now, HeyMax gives people miles later. Instant beats delayed in every psychology textbook. ShopBack has 100 times the users, and the mass market tells surveyors it prefers cashback, so how does HeyMax win? My answer, which the next 20 chapters will earn: you do not beat ShopBack by fighting for the same 6 cents with a worse currency lag. You beat it by seeing what the evidence actually shows. That pure cashback is one of the worst business models of the internet era. That the psychology of instant wins is real, but has documented, peer-reviewed countermeasures. And that the profitable end of this industry has always been the aspirational currency, not the rebate. The graveyard is full. Cash rewards, dead, roughly $100 million written off. Shopkick, dead. Drop, dead with user balances stranded. Ibotta, down 73% from its IPO. Cardlytics, $1.4 billion of accumulated losses. Honey, disgraced. Meanwhile, the airline shopping malls have printed money since 2005. Bilt reached a $10.75 billion valuation on transferable points. And the one thing ShopBack has never built, in 11 years, with $350 million raised, is a currency anyone dreams about. Ground rules. Every company number in this analysis traces to a filing, an audited account, or named reporting consulted in August 2026. Every psychological claim traces to a named study, most of them peer-reviewed. Where a figure is an estimate, I say so. And the final chapter states exactly what evidence would prove this strategy wrong. Let's begin. Chapter 1, the 6-cent pie. How does cashback actually work? Not how the marketing describes it, how the money actually moves. Start with the money loop, because everything else in this book hangs off it. Here's the loop. A merchant agrees to pay an affiliate commission on tracked sales. That happens one of two ways: through an affiliate network, names like Rakuten Advertising, CJ, Awin, Impact, and Partnerize, or through a direct deal with the platform. The cashback platform then sends a shopper through a tracked link, or it matches a transaction on a card the shopper has linked. The merchant validates the sale after the return window closes, typically 30 to 90 days, and only then pays the commission. The platform passes some share of that money back to the user and calls it cashback. It keeps the rest. That's the whole machine. Merchant pays, platform tracks, sale validates, money splits, everything else is decoration. Now the question that matters: how big is the pie? Here we actually have an audited answer, which is rare and precious in this industry. Cash Rewards, Australia's listed cashback company, before it died, disclosed an average merchant commission of 6.1% of transaction value in its fiscal 2021 year, excluding travel and gift cards. Cross-industry affiliate benchmarks run around 8.3%. Fashion pays well, 8 to 18%. Electronics sits down at 1 to 10%, clustered toward the low end. Travel runs roughly 3 to 6% for hotels and near zero for flights. So call the whole pie 6 to 8 cents per dollar of sales. 6 to 8 cents, that's everything there is. And from those 6 to 8 cents, everyone must eat. The user's cashback comes out first. Then the networks override roughly 20 to 30% of the publisher commission on network deals, and I'll flag that one as an estimate. Then payment costs, fraud, tracking losses, customer service. And only after all of that, at the very end of the line, the platform's own margin. Every one of those is a leak in a bucket that started with 6 cents in it. So how much does the platform actually keep? We have disclosed points on the spectrum, and they're worth memorizing. Top Cashback, the UK leader, passes about 80.6% of commission through to its members and keeps 19.4%. That is not a press release number. It's derived directly from the audited accounts. Turnover of £214.3 million against cost of sales of £172.8 million. US portals like Rakuten Rewards conventionally split roughly half and half. That one is widely reported but not filed, so treat it accordingly. And card-linked offers run through different plumbing, with an extra mouth to feed. In Cardlytics' actual results for fiscal 2025, out of every advertiser dollar, 39 cents went to the consumer, 27 cents went to the banks, and 34 cents stayed with Cardlytics. And that's before Cardlytics pays its own delivery and operating costs. Now, two structural details deserve real emphasis here, because they become strategy later in this book. First, validation lag is structural. Commissions only confirm after return windows close. That's why your cashback sits in a pending state for 30 to 90 days. Think about what that means. The instant gratification product is not actually instant. The cash you were promised at checkout arrives 1 to 3 months later, if it arrives at all. ShopBack's own complaint boards document this vividly, and it's a seam HeyMax can attack. Second, the tracking is fragile and the merchant can simply turn it off. Here's the case that proves it. Top Cashback's own audited strategic report disclosed that a major travel provider, industry reporting identifies it as Booking.com, stopped working with cashback sites worldwide, outside the USA, at the start of 2024. Just like that. Gone. The same report separately flagged that European and UK cookie consent rules keep increasing untracked sales, and with them, missing cashback claims. Sit with that for a moment. The channel's biggest merchants can amputate it overnight, and the attribution rail the whole business rides on, the last-click cookie, is decaying under privacy regulation and was publicly disgraced by the Honey scandal. We'll get to Honey. What about the card-linked variant? You link a card, and the platform attributes your purchase straight from the transaction feed. No cookies, no last click. That fixes the attribution problem, but it adds cost, another layer of infrastructure that has to be paid. And here's the tell. Fidel API, the celebrated card-linking infrastructure startup that raised a $65 million Series B, reported 2022 revenue of $3.59 million against $21.8 million of operating losses. Read that again. Revenue, $3.59 million. Operating losses, $21.8 million. Even the picks and shovels layer of this industry has struggled to make money. So here's the number I want you to hold in your head for the rest of this book. The whole pie is about 6 cents per dollar. The platform's realistic net take, after the user gets their share, after the plumbing takes its cut, is on the order of 1 to 2 cents per dollar of gross merchandise volume. Now do the arithmetic with me. If you keep 1 to 2 cents on every dollar, and you want to build $100 million of gross profit, you need $7 to $10 billion of tracked gross merchandise volume flowing through your platform. $7 to $10 billion of other people's shopping, just to gross $100 million. That arithmetic is the industry's original sin, and almost nobody survives it. Chapter 2, The Graveyard and the Survivors. The commissioned brief asked for the typical metrics of ShopBack and its competitors. Before we get to ShopBack itself, I want to lay out the global evidence base, the disclosed economics of every major cashback player with public numbers. Fair warning, it reads like a battlefield report. Start with Cardlytics, listed on the NASDAQ. Cardlytics runs cashback offers inside bank apps, Chase offers, Wells Fargo deals, and formerly Bank of America. Fiscal 2025, billings of $385 million, revenue of $233 million, and a net loss of $103.5 million. Its accumulated deficit is roughly $1.4 billion. It has never had a single profitable year under standard GAAP accounting since it went public in 2018. And here's the statistic that stops me cold. Cardlytics analyzed $5.7 trillion of card purchases in 2025 and monetized each reachable bank customer at 50 cents per year. 50 cents. Then, in April 2025, Bank of America fired it with a non-renewal letter, deleting an eighth of its audience overnight. The stock, which traded above $150 at the 2021 peak, sat at $3.74 in August 2026. That is what audience without engagement is worth. Next, Ibotta, listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Ibotta is the best public window into cashback unit economics because its IPO filings disclose everything, and it is the good cashback business, genuinely. Brands fund the user's reward plus Ibotta's fee. Gross margins run 79 to 86%. It was actually profitable, $38 million of net income in 2023, $68.7 million in 2024. It went public in April 2024 at $88 a share. In August 2026, it trades at $24, down 73%. Why? Growth stalled the moment consumer packaged goods promo budgets wobbled. Its own consumer app is shrinking 26% a year as users migrate to white-label deals inside Walmart and Instacart. And net income collapsed to $3.6 million in 2025. Hear the lesson clearly. Even executed well, cashback is a business the market will not pay for. Rebates is the one genuinely good outcome, and note carefully why. Rakuten bought it in 2014 for $1 billion, when Rebates had $167.4 million of revenue and $13.7 million of operating income, profitable, about an 8% margin, on $2.2 billion of gross merchandise volume. But Rakuten wanted a U.S. ecosystem beachhead, and it runs Rebates as a marketing arm, not a profit center. The one durable cashback exit was a strategic absorption. Honey is the disgrace. PayPal paid roughly $4 billion for it in 2020. Then, in December 2024, the YouTuber Megalag published evidence that Honey's browser extension was swapping its own affiliate tag into the last click, hijacking commissions from the very influencers it sponsored. The fallout, roughly 8 million Chrome users gone by the end of 2025. Class action lawsuits from creators. A Google Chrome Web Store policy change. And in January 2026, PayPal disabling what it called evasion code as Rakuten Advertising, one of the world's largest affiliate networks, expelled Honey outright. The scandal indicted the industry's load-bearing wall, last-click attribution itself. Now the proof that cashback can work, top cashback, and the terms are instructive. Audited fiscal 2024, turnover of £214.3 million, net profit of £12.5 million, 28.17 million members, roughly 1% of all UK online retail flowing through it. How does it do this? It is founder-owned. It has never taken venture capital. It passes 80.6% of commission through to members, and it keeps total administrative costs near £1 per member per year. £1. Its twin, Quidco, tells the other half of the story. Quidco was acquired by MoneySupermarket for up to £101 million in 2021 and has since shrunk to £52.7 million of revenue, down 13% in 2025, demoted to a retention widget. Same market, same model. The disciplined operator with zero acquisition cost compounds, the acquired one decays. And then cash rewards, the controlled experiment closest to ShopBack's home. Australia's leading homegrown cashback app listed on the Australian Securities Exchange in December 2020 at $1.73 Australian, raising 65 million Australian dollars. In its one full year as a listed company, it lost 29.8 million Australian dollars on 22.1 million of revenue. Listen to that again. The loss exceeded the revenue. It was spending roughly 35 Australian dollars of marketing for every new member, and only about a quarter of those members ever became active. ANZ's venture arm took it private 13 months after listing, at $1.13.50 Australian, 35% below the listing price, embedded it inside the bank, and then shut it down on September 8, 2025, writing off roughly 100 million Australian dollars. Members were given until December to withdraw their balances. Australia's #1 local cashback brand, owned by a major bank, could not make the model work. Add the minor graves. ShopBack's, points for store visits, a $200 million exit to Trax in 2019, shut down on March 27, 2026, with employees notified hours before and users not at all. And Drop, out of Toronto, $21 million from the venture firm NEA, then a $58 million Canadian dollar Series B, died with user balances stranded. Redemptions were rationed to $25 gift card batches that sold out in seconds. Then the app simply stopped opening. Now tabulate the pattern with me. 4 big exits, Ebates at $1 billion, Honey at $4 billion, Quidco at up to £101 million, cash rewards at roughly $100 million Australian dollars in. The scorecard by 2026, 1 kept as a marketing arm, 1 scandal wrecked, 1 shrinking double digits, 1 dead. 2 public listings, Cardlytics, never profitable, down 98% from its peak. Ibotta, profitable, down 73%. And 1 independent survivor, Top Cashback, profitable precisely because it spends nothing on acquisition and nearly nothing on operations. So here is the synthesis, which I'll assert as this chapter's thesis and defend for the rest of the book. In Cashback, the money has never been in owning the user's rebate. It's in owning the distribution the rebate rides on or the rails every program needs. Everyone in between gets bought, squeezed, or buried. ShopBack is the strongest in-between player Southeast Asia has produced. That is both a fact about its excellence and a warning about its ceiling. Chapter 3: The Quiet Profit Pools. Before we get to ShopBack, one more layer of the cashback machine needs daylight, because this is where the model's real profits hide, and because it hands HeyMax a legitimate line of attack. Cashback marketing says, "It's your money." The filings say something different. The filings say a meaningful part of the business is engineered around you never collecting it. That sounds like an accusation. It's really just a description of the accounting. The quiet profit pools have names, breakage, float, and the rebate illusion, and I'm going to show you the evidence for each one. 3 exhibits. Exhibit 1, Ibotta's breakage disclosure, the only company that puts hard numbers on this. Here's how it works. If your Ibotta account sits inactive for 6 months, Ibotta starts charging it an account maintenance fee of $3.99 per month, every month, until the balance hits 0. Your cashback doesn't just sit there waiting for you, it drains. And the numbers are not small. In 2023, Ibotta recognized $31.5 million of breakage. That's about 8% of its revenue. Now here's the detail that should make you sit up straight. Ibotta's profit swing in its IPO year was partly powered by a software fix, a fix that correctly charged dormancy fees to all inactive users, producing a one-time windfall of $13.5 million. And meanwhile, its liability to users, earned cashback not yet paid out, stood at $84.5 million at the end of 2023. The instant cash product quietly eats the cash of anyone who stops paying attention. Exhibit 2, Top Cashback's float. And remember, this is the most member-friendly operator in the entire industry, the one that passes 80% of commission through. Top Cashback holds roughly £103 million of cash and investments against member balances. And on that money that belongs, notionally, to its members, it earned £5.4 million of investment income in fiscal 2024. That's about 31% of its pre-tax profit. Let me say that plainly. Nearly a third of the profit at the industry's best operator comes from holding money it hasn't yet paid out. A well-run cashback site is partly a money market fund wearing a shopping user interface. Now, to its credit, Top Cashback maintains resources to cover all member balances, but UK consumer media still warn that user balances are unprotected if a site fails, and that warning is not theoretical. Cash rewards shut down deadlines and drop stranded balances, both from the last chapter, made it concrete. Exhibit 3, the rebate illusion, and this one is peer-reviewed. A 1998 study in the Journal of Marketing Research by Soman showed the mechanism. At purchase time, consumers underweight future effort relative to future savings, so they buy because of the rebate. But when redemption time actually arrives, the effort looms large and many never redeem at all. The rebate sold the product. The rebate was never collected. How big can that effect get? The classic mail-in rebate industry ran on roughly 40% breakage. That figure comes from a 2005 Businessweek investigation, so label it journalistic, not academic. But 40%, nearly half the promised money, never claimed. Modern cashback softens the friction, no envelopes, no stamps. But look closely, and the funnel is still there. First, your cashback is tracked, then it must be confirmed, then it must be withdrawn. And at each of those steps, minimum thresholds, claim windows, expiring bonuses. Ask yourself how many gates stand between you and your own money. Every step leaks users. And the leakage is margin. So what's the honest description of a cashback platform's profit and loss statement? 4 stacked pools. 1, the commission take. 2, the breakage. 3, the float income. And 4, for the aggressive operators, paid tiers, and advertising. Only the first pool is the one the marketing talks about. The user-facing promise is a rebate. The business is a funnel that profits from friction and forgetting. Now, I want to be careful here, because HeyMax lives in a glass house. Miles programs monetize breakage too. And Chapter 19 of this book will put HeyMax's own liability and HeyMax's own devaluations under exactly the same lamp. No free passes in this analysis. But there is a structural difference worth naming right now, before we go any further. Cashback's breakage is adversarial. The user wanted cash and lost it to dormancy, fees, and expiry. That is a promise broken. A Miles balance that sits unredeemed is something different. It is still visible, still growing, still pointed at something, a destination, a seat, a trip. And what about the cashback the user does manage to collect? Here, the windfall literature delivers its verdict. A 2009 study by Milkman and Beshears found that a $10 grocery windfall dissolves into just $1.59 of atypical spending. The rest simply vanishes into the regular budget. Earlier work by Arks and colleagues in 1994 found the same pattern. Windfalls are disproportionately spent, not saved. The money you fought the funnel to collect, it evaporates without a trace. So picture 2 users at the end of the year. The cashback user ends the year with nothing they can point to. Where did the money go? They don't remember. It dissolved into groceries and rounding errors. The Miles user ends the year with a balance or a flight. That asymmetry is not marketing spin. It is documented consumer behavior from the peer-reviewed record. And it is the emotional spine of everything HeyMax should say in public. Chapter 4, ShopBack, the company. Respect first. And I mean that, the strategy chapters later in this book only work if we take the rival seriously. Chapter 2 was a graveyard tour, and ShopBack is one of the exceptions. So let me say it plainly. ShopBack is the most successful consumer internet company the cashback model has ever produced in Asia, and one of very few anywhere in the world to survive at scale. Founded in August 2014 in Singapore by 6 co-founders, Henry Chan and Joel Leung, both formerly of Zalora, together with Brian Chua, Lai Shanru, Samantha So, and Josephine Chow. The origin story is standard issue and telling. 2 e-commerce operators brainstorming in a car. A prototype built in about a week, quote, locked up in a hotel room. And a model imported consciously from the mature US and UK Playbook, Ebates, Top Cashback, into a region that had never heard the word cashback. Think about what that means for a moment. The early hurdle wasn't competition. It was, literally, education. Now the expansion map, and it's a long one. Malaysia in 2015, then Indonesia and the Philippines, Thailand and Taiwan in 2016, Australia in 2018, Vietnam around 2019, South Korea in April 2020, and note how that one happened, by acquiring Ebates Korea from Rakuten at the time the country's largest cashback platform. Hong Kong in 2022, Germany in August 2023, New Zealand around 2024, and in 2025, the United States, which ShopBack itself calls, quote, our largest and most competitive market to date. Count them up. Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, Taiwan, Australia, Vietnam, South Korea, Hong Kong, Germany, New Zealand, and now the United States. 13 markets. No documented full exits. And note that for later, because no documented exits is not the same thing as 13 successes. The funding history reads like a who's who of Asian capital, roughly $350 million over 9 rounds. Credit Saison led $25 million in 2017. Rakuten Capital and EV Growth led $45 million in 2019. Temasek led $75 million in March 2020. A $160 million Series F came together across 2022, led by Asia Partners along with the firm's 65 equity partners. And in December 2022, a $30 million strategic tranche from Westpac, Australia's second-largest bank. 9 rounds, $350 million, and look at the names on that list: Temasek, Westpac, Rakuten, Credit Saison, banks and points economy giants all writing checks. The last priced valuation? Close to $1 billion per Bloomberg sources in November 2022. The Australian Financial Review, writing in February 2026, called it last valued at 1.4 billion Australian dollars, that is, which comes to roughly the same $1 billion US. 2 details in that funding history matter strategically, so let me flag them now. First, the cap table irony. Rakuten and Credit Saison, 2 of the world's great points economy companies, sit on ShopBack's cap table, and in 11 years, ShopBack never built a transferable points currency. Never. Sit with that one. Second, the drought. No new primary equity has been publicly reported since December 2022. The next money is meant to come from the public markets, and we'll get to exactly what that means in the next chapter. Headcount tells the arc of the company's ambition and its correction. About 6 people in 2014, 700 by 2019 or 2020, roughly 900 at the peak in early 2022. And then the cut, 195 roles, 24% of the company, eliminated in March 2024, leaving roughly 620 people. From 6 to 900, back down to 620. That curve is the story of the whole company in miniature. We'll do those layoffs properly in Chapter 6, because the CEO's memo announcing them is one of the most strategically revealing documents ShopBack has ever produced. So what does ShopBack actually sell today? The product surface is wide. Online affiliate cashback across more than 20,000 merchants. In-store card-linked cashback, a large voucher and gift card business. ShopBack Pay, a QR payment rail in Singapore. A merchant-facing performance marketing suite called ShopBack for Business. And the newest bet, ShopBack Play, a gaming vertical launched across 6 markets in early 2025, which, together with AI personalization, is credited for the growth reacceleration in fiscal 2026. And the scale claims, these are company-stated, so label them as such. More than 20 million active members, 500 million shopping trips powered annually, $5.5 billion of sales driven for merchants in 2025. And one more, crossed in January 2026, with co-founder Joel Leung fronting the announcement. 1 billion Singapore dollars of cumulative cashback awarded since 2014. That last milestone deserves a pause, a full stop, because the company's own framing of it captures its entire competitive philosophy in a single sentence. Quote, "Every dollar of cashback awarded corresponds to real transactions and real commercial outcomes." Hear what that's really saying. Cash equals real. Rewards you can bank, tied to purchases that actually happened. No funny money, no points that might rot. That is ShopBack's brand promise. That is ShopBack's moat. And as part 3 of this book will show, when we get to the psychology of rewards, that same sentence is also ShopBack's psychological ceiling. A company that has staked everything on cash equals real has also told you, in advance, exactly what it cannot offer. A currency anyone dreams about. Hold that thought. First, we need to look at the books. Chapter 5, ShopBack's books, the metrics. Now the numbers the brief actually asked for, the business metrics. A word on sourcing first. These come from ACRA-derived filings, as reported by Tech in Asia, Deal Street Asia, and FinTech News Singapore. And note that ShopBack's fiscal year ends on March 31st. Start with fiscal 2023, the year ending March 2023. Revenue, $87.7 million, down about 20% year-on-year, with voucher revenue halving. The net loss widened by roughly 27.5%, implying a loss around $100 million. That loss figure is an estimate derived from the disclosed percentage. And one caveat the record demands. Fiscal 2024's growth was later reported against a restated fiscal 2023 base of about $117.6 million, consistent with a change in revenue presentation, most plausibly a switch between gross and net accounting on the voucher business. So treat those fiscal 2023 figures as, quote, as reported at the time. Onto fiscal 2024. Revenue, $133.1 million, up 13.2% on the restated basis. Net loss, $65.1 million. Operating loss, $59.1 million. Employee benefits, $90.2 million. Marketing, $22.7 million. Net operating cash burn, $33 million. Cash on hand, $211.6 million. And here's the balance sheet item that jumps out at you. Total equity, negative $445.6 million. Why negative? Because the preference shares sit as liabilities on the balance sheet. Fiscal 2025. Revenue, $129.4 million, down 2.8%. That's the retreat from buy now pay later and other capital-heavy lines. The operating loss narrowed sharply to $23.1 million, with employee costs cut from $90 million down to $61.5 million. Operating cash burn fell to just $9 million. And then comes the headline that requires careful disassembly. Net profit of $208.4 million. A $200 million profit from this business? No, that profit is an accounting artifact. It consists of $231.9 million of net finance income from fair value adjustments, the preference share liabilities being marked down. Now think about what a markdown of the preference shares actually means. It means the implied value of the company fell. The so-called profit is the accounting shadow of a valuation cut. FinTech News Singapore's own summary put it flatly, quote, the underlying business remained in the red, and total equity? Still negative, $230.3 million. Fiscal 2026, the year to March 2026. Revenue growth above 30%, implying roughly $168 million or more. That figure is an estimate. The growth is attributed to higher frequency use cases, ShopBack Play, and AI. And per Acting Chief Financial Officer Huang Hyunmin, adjusted EBITDA has now been positive for 6 consecutive quarters. Let me be fair here, because this is real operational improvement, honestly earned. Since the 2024 restructuring, ShopBack has executed a genuine turnaround from a $100 million annual loss to adjusted EBITDA positive. Credit where it's due. Now the derived unit economics, and here's where Chapter 1 comes home. Against company-stated gross merchandise volume of $4 to $5.5 billion, revenue of roughly $130 million works out to a net take rate of roughly 2.4 to 3.3%. That's an estimate, and it lands squarely in the global pattern. A thin slice of a 6-cent pie, half given back to users, no recurring revenue line, no software-as-a-service layer, wholly hostage to merchant commissions and campaign subsidies. And then there's the 2026 story that frames everything, the IPO. The Australian Financial Review's Street Talk column, February 1st, 2026, quote, Westpac-backed ShopBack, last valued at $1.4 billion, weighs Aussie IPO. Henry Chan has asked Australian banks to pitch. There have been non-deal roadshows in Sydney and Melbourne. Sources suggest a pre-IPO funding round in 2026 and a listing possibly in early 2027 on the Australian Securities Exchange, following the Guzman y Gomez playbook. Now read that IPO through a strategist's eyes because it cuts both ways. If it succeeds, ShopBack gets a war chest and public validation. But the process itself is a constraint, and here's the part that matters. A company grooming its public market metrics for 18 months must show clean, improving EBITDA. It cannot torch margin to fight a knife fight against a small rival in Singapore. It cannot launch expensive speculative products. It just finished apologizing for the last one, and every number it produces will now be public and scrutinized. The IPO window makes ShopBack simultaneously its strongest and its most predictable. Challengers dream about opponents who have pre-announced that they must behave. So, for this metrics chapter's summary, here are the numbers to remember. Roughly $350 million raised, a stale valuation of roughly $1 billion, 13 markets, more than 20 million active members, and note, that's down defined from 35 million, quote, registered shoppers in 2022. $5.5 billion of gross merchandise volume, revenue of roughly 130 to 168 million, a take rate of roughly 2.4 to 3.3%, adjusted EBITDA positive since late 2024, but never yet a full year of operating profit. Equity still negative at $230 million. And one final number, the one that sums up the whole model. 1 billion Singapore dollars of cumulative cashback awarded over 11 years, a sum that took $350 million of venture funding to give away. Chapter 6, ShopBack's Scars. Every incumbent has scars. What makes ShopBack unusual is how well documented its scars are, several of them in its own chief executive's words. Together they form a weakness dossier, the factual basis for where a challenger can attack, and just as importantly, where it cannot. Scar 1, the Buy Now Pay Later misadventure. In November of 2021, near the very top of the Buy Now Pay Later bubble, ShopBack acquired Hula, a Singapore Buy Now Pay Later provider, and relaunched it as ShopBack Pay Later in 2022. On March 1, 2024, the company announced the shutdown. Pay Later died on March 22, 2024 in Singapore and Malaysia. Bloomberg's verdict was right there in the headline. Quote, Temasek-backed ShopBack cuts 24% of jobs in Pay Later defeat. End quote. How much did the adventure cost? We don't know exactly because the write-off was never separately disclosed. It is buried somewhere inside the roughly $100 million loss for fiscal 2023. But the structural lesson matters more than the number. A balance sheet-heavy lending product was bolted onto a thin-margin media business. It was bought at the top of the cycle. It was killed by rising rates and regulatory overhead. Diversification into adjacent products is not free optionality. It is how thin-margin platforms die faster. Scar 2, the layoffs memo. March 19, 2024. 195 roles cut. 24% of the company. Henry Chan's memo carried the title on focus and sustainability, a painful decision, and it contains the sentence a competitor should frame and hang on the wall. Quote, I made the mistake of pursuing too many directions as a company and expanding our team too rapidly. I take full responsibility for the decisions that have led to this situation. End quote. Now, let me be fair here. The severance was generous, and the honesty is genuinely creditable. But the strategic fact stands. The market leader has publicly admitted, in writing, that its instinct under abundance is to lose focus. And here is the pattern recognition warning. Post-discipline, meaning ShopBack in 2025 and 2026, the company is simultaneously running a land war in the United States against Rakuten, Honey, and Capital One Shopping, plus a gaming pivot, plus 13 markets, plus an initial public offering process. The too many directions risk profile is visibly reemerging. Scar 3, the breach. September 2020, unauthorized access to ShopBack's customer data. The root cause? An Amazon Web Services access key that had been committed to a GitHub repository and left exposed in the commit history. The data of roughly 20.5 million users was affected. The database was later offered for sale on a hacker forum. and customers were notified 8 days after discovery, a delay that drew criticism of its own. Singapore's Personal Data Protection Commission fined the entity 74,400 Singapore dollars. Do the division, and that works out to about a third of a Singapore cent per affected user. Now remember what this company's product actually asks of people. Link your cards and give us your purchase history. For a business built on that ask, trust debt of this kind compounds quietly. Scar 4, the complaint genres. Spend time on Reddit, on OzBargain, on the Better Business Bureau, on Trustpilot, and you find the same 4 complaints recurring year after year. 1. Cashback not tracked. The cookie failed, the ad blocker interfered, you must have used another browser. 2. Cashback rejected after the fact, at the confirmation stage. 3. Accounts deactivated with balances withheld. 4. Paid tier members reporting that the premium promise was not honored. Let me be precise about what these are. They are not scandals. They are the structural failure modes of last-click attribution and post-hoc validation, the very same plumbing Chapter 1 described. And the point for strategy is not that ShopBack is unusually bad. It isn't. HeyMax's own missing miles tickets are its dominant support category too, and Chapter 19 will face that squarely. The point is this: the incumbent's product breaks its core promise, it's your money, at a documented, chronic rate. And every single break manufactures an evangelist for the alternatives. Scar 5, the metric deflation. 35 million registered shoppers in 2022 quietly became 20 million plus active members in the 2026 corporate copy. The reframing is fair, as far as it goes. But listen to the gap between registered and active that it reveals, a gap echoing Cash Rewards' 1 in 4 activation rate. That gap is the industry's dirty constant. Most people who sign up for Cashback never really use it. And now, the structural weakness that matters most for this book: the currency ceiling. ShopBack's reward is cash, plus gamified coins with no external value. Exhaustive searching finds no airline currency integration of any kind. No Crease Flyer, no Asia Miles, no Qantas points. Nothing. Miles exist at ShopBack only as search engine optimization content, velocity versus Crease Flyer listicles, written to catch search traffic. Think about that. 11 years of operation. $350 million raised. The 2 greatest points companies of Asia sitting on its capitalization table, and still no aspirational currency. Which means the highest spending, most vocal, most valuable loyalty segment in ShopBack's own home market, the Miles Chasers, has no reason to concentrate their spending on ShopBack. Why? Here is the answer, and it is the hinge of this entire book. $1 of cashback costs ShopBack exactly $1. That is the whole story. ShopBack cannot afford aspiration. That single cost structure fact is the door HeyMax walks through, and Part 4 will quantify exactly how wide it opens. But before the strategy, we need the science. Because the whole question at the heart of this fight, can delayed miles beat instant cash, has been studied rigorously for 50 years. And the answers, as we're about to see, are much more interesting than either side's marketing. Chapter 7, The Enemy Now. We have arrived at the psychology, and I want to start by stating the brief central worry honestly, because it deserves an honest answer. ShopBack's product is psychologically nearer. Cash now beats a flight later. Is that true? Yes, it is. And precisely how it is true tells you exactly how to fight it. The foundational result is hyperbolic discounting. George Ainsley documented it in 1975 in Psychological Bulletin, and David Laibson formalized it as the beta-delta model in 1997 in the Quarterly Journal of Economics. Here is the finding. Humans discount delayed rewards hyperbolically, not exponentially. And that particular curve shape produces something called preference reversal. When both options are far away, we choose the larger, later reward. Then, at the actual moment of choice, we switch to the smaller, sooner one. Same person, same options, opposite decision, the only thing that changed is how close the choice got. The empirical record adds the crucial detail about the shape of the curve. Frederick, Lowenstein, and O'Donoghue reviewed the field in 2002, and Thaler ran the classic measurements back in 1981. Measured discount rates are enormous over short horizons. Thaler found implied annual rates of around 345% at a 1-month horizon, falling to about 19% at 10 years. Hear what that shape is telling you. The discount cliff sits between now and any delay at all, not between 3 months and 18 months. Read that carefully because it inverts the naive conclusion. It does not say make the flight feel sooner. You can't. The flight is months away regardless of anything you do. What it says is this: the war is fought entirely at the moment of the transaction. Whoever owns the now bucket wins the checkout. So HeyMax's design imperative is not to compress the redemption timeline. It is to make the earning event instant, vivid, and celebrated, miles credited on screen at the moment of purchase, with ceremony, while the redemption sits out in the future, where the discount penalty is roughly flat. And here is the delicious irony. ShopBack fails its own psychology. Its cashback sits in a pending state for 30 to 90 days, invisible and silent. The instant gratification incumbent does not actually deliver instant gratification, which means a miles program that celebrates the earn at the moment of purchase is psychologically faster than cashback that confirms in October. Let that sink in because it reframes the entire matchup. Now, the countermeasures. Because the same literature that documents present bias also documents, just as rigorously, how people beat it. Countermeasure 1, commitment devices. And I will flag this plainly, this is the single most important study in this book. Ashraf, Carlin, and Yin, in a 2006 paper in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, ran a randomized field experiment with a bank in the Philippines. The product was called Seed, a savings account that restricted withdrawals until a self-set goal was reached. Note what it did not offer: no extra interest. Nothing sweetened the deal. It was a pure lock. The results? 28% of the customers who were offered the account took it up. And the treatment group's savings rose 81 percentage points at 12 months versus control. Present-biased people measured and identified as present-biased, voluntarily chose the illiquid product and then saved dramatically more. Sit with what that means for this fight. Illiquidity is not HeyMax's bug. For a large, documented segment of consumers, illiquidity is the product. A miles balance is, structurally, a commitment savings account for travel. It is the account you can't raid for groceries. And the standard objection, but cashback is more flexible, names precisely the property that the Seed experiment shows people will voluntarily pay to give up. Why would they give it up? Because they know exactly what they'll do with flexible money, nothing memorable. So HeyMax should market the lock the way Seed did. Named goals, call it the Tokyo Fund. Locked progress. The explicit promise that this is the money that becomes something. Countermeasure 2, temptation bundling. Milkman, Minson, and Volpe in a 2014 paper in Management Science. The idea: bind an immediate pleasure to a virtuous behavior, and the behavior sustains itself. In their study, gym attendance ran roughly 51% higher early in the experiment when tempting audiobooks were locked to workouts. The pleasure was only available while doing the virtuous thing. The translation for HeyMax is direct. Attach immediate hedonic payoff, the animation, the streak flame, the community feed, the little hit of dopamine when a number goes up, to the virtuous act of routing your spending through HeyMax. Understand this correctly. It is not decoration. It is the tested mechanism for making delayed benefit behavior feel good now. Countermeasure 3, lock the choice in before the temptation ever appears. Ainsley's pre-commitment result implies that the decision has to be moved earlier than checkout, earlier than the moment when present bias is strongest. What does that look like in practice? Defaults, auto-earn on linked cards, pledges made on Sunday for the week's shopping ahead. Chapter 14 will operationalize all of this using the defaults literature, which, I will note now for the record, contains the largest effect sizes in all of behavioral science. So here is the honest summary of round 1. Yes, present bias is real. Yes, it is enormous, remember Thaler's 345%. And yes, it favors whoever owns now. But the fight is winnable, and it is winnable for 3 specific, documented reasons. First, the incumbent's supposedly instant product is actually slow, pending for 30 to 90 days. Second, the earn event, not the redemption, is where now lives, and the earn event is completely up for grabs. Third, a documented fraction of consumers actively seek out commitment products that beat their own impulsivity. 28% of ordinary bank customers signed up for a pure lock with no upside except the lock itself. The enemy is not cash. The enemy is silence at the moment of purchase. Chapter 8, The Medium is the Motivator. The last chapter asked whether delayed miles can survive against instant cash. This chapter goes further. It argues that points beat cash anyway, and here is the result that should be printed on HeyMax's office wall. HC, Zhang and Zhang, in a 2003 paper in the Journal of Consumer Research titled Medium Maximization. The finding: insert a points medium between effort and reward, and people start maximizing the medium itself. They work harder for more points. Even when the extra points map to a reward they don't actually value anymore. The medium manufactures motivation from nothing. How? Through what the authors call illusions of advantage, certainty, and linearity. Put simply, people will do more for 100 points redeemable for X than they will do for X itself. This is the foundational license for the entire miles model. A points currency is not a worse-dressed dollar. It is a motivation amplifier. Earn 1,000 max miles moves behavior in a way that earn 18 Singapore dollars of eventual cashback simply cannot. Same economics, different psychology. And this result does not stand alone. It stacks with 3 more peer-reviewed findings. First, earned indulgence. Kivitz and Simonson in a 2002 paper in the Journal of Marketing Research. As the effort required by a program rises, people's preferences shift toward luxury rewards over cash. Effort licenses guilt-free indulgence. And here is the crucial detail: the shift disappears when the payoff is framed as cash. Think about what that means in practice. People will not spend 4,000 Singapore dollars of salary on a business class seat, but they will gleefully claim the exact same seat as an earned entitlement. Cash cannot be an entitlement, it's just income. The flight you earned is a trophy. The rebate you received is a discount. And ShopBack, by the nature of its currency, is structurally locked out of this entire emotional register. Second, stated versus revealed preference. Jeffrey, in a 2009 paper in the journal Human Performance. People say they prefer cash incentives and then demonstrably perform harder for tangible, hedonic, non-cash rewards. Why? Because non-cash rewards are easier to justify enjoying, more vivid to imagine, and socially reportable. You can tell people about them. Keep this study loaded for every board meeting where someone waves the YouGov survey, the one we'll meet in Chapter 12, showing that Singapore says it prefers cashback. Of course people say that. The measured motivational force runs the other way. Third, mental accounting. Toller's foundational work in 1985 and 1999, plus the Windfall studies, Arks and colleagues in 1994, and Milkman and Bashir's in 2009. The core insight: money is not fungible in the mind. We keep it in separate mental accounts, and the account determines what happens to it. Cashback lands in the regular money account, and it dissolves. The field data is almost comically specific on this. A $10 windfall became $1.59 of atypical grocery indulgence, and the rest simply vanished into the budget. Gone, unremembered. Miles are different. Miles pool in a dedicated, labeled, protected mental account with a scoreboard attached. The campaign line writes itself, and notice that it is evidence-backed, not ad copy. What did your cashback become? You don't remember. A Miles user can point at the seat. There is one more result here, subtle and genuinely useful: combined currency pricing. Dries and Nuns in a 2004 paper in the Journal of Marketing Research. A price of $39 plus 25,000 miles can feel cheaper than either equivalent pure price, all cash, or all miles. Why? Because the two components get evaluated against separate reference points, and each one looks small against its own yardstick. The strategic implication: Miles Plus Cash redemptions are not just a flexibility feature for users with low balances. They are a documented perceived cost reducer. And they hand new users an early taste of redemption, which matters enormously, for reasons Chapter 9 is about to establish. Now, the classic practitioner frame that organizes all of this. O'Brien and Jones, writing in the Harvard Business Review in 1995, laid out 5 dimensions of a reward's motivational value: cash value, choice, aspirational value, attainability, convenience. Score the 2 combatants against that rubric. Cashback maximizes cash value and convenience and scores 0 on aspiration. 0. Airline miles, meanwhile, are the literature's canonical aspirational reward, the textbook example of the category. The strategic instruction that falls out of this framework is explicit, and I want to spell it out. Concede the axis you cannot win. That axis is raw cash value, and if you doubt that it's unwinnable, remember Top Cashback, which keeps only 19% of its commission and passes everything else through to the user. Competing on pure cash rebate against players like that is a war for masochists. Instead, dominate the 2 axes the incumbent cannot reach. Aspiration, because $1 of cash can never be a business-class seat in the mind's eye. And attainability, reached through low-denomination early redemptions that let a new user actually touch a reward soon after joining, instead of staring at a distant mountain. So pull the threads of this chapter together. Medium maximization says the points currency itself amplifies motivation. People work harder for the medium than for the reward behind it. Earned indulgence says effort-based programs unlock a luxury register that cash can never touch. The stated versus revealed literature says surveys claiming people prefer cash are measuring talk, not behavior. Mental accounting says cash rebates dissolve into the budget while miles accumulate in a protected account with a scoreboard. Combined currency pricing says Miles Plus Cash offers genuinely feel cheaper. And the 5-dimension framework says the winning play is to concede raw cash value and own aspiration and attainability outright. Same economics, different psychology. That asymmetry is HeyMax's to exploit, and the next chapter adds the 3rd body of science, the one about keeping users once you have them. Chapter 9, The Progress Machine. The 3rd body of science is about retention, and it happens to be the body of work where a points program holds native weapons that a cashback wallet structurally lacks: goals, streaks, habit, status. Start with the goal gradient. Hull showed it with rats back in 1932. Effort accelerates as the goal gets closer. Kivitz, Erminsky, and Zhang in a 2006 paper in the Journal of Marketing Research, and I'll note that this is one I verified from the full text, showed it with humans at a Columbia University cafe. Across 949 completed buy 10 get 1 coffee cards, the time between purchases fell 20% as customers approached the free coffee. Cards were completed about 16% faster than their initial pace implied. And it gets better. Their illusionary progress experiment. A 12-stamp card with 2 bonus stamps already applied beat a regular 10-stamp card, identical real effort in both cases. Why? Because motivation tracks the proportion of the distance remaining, not the absolute effort. And here is the kicker for the economics: acceleration toward the first reward predicted retention. Purchase rates reset after each reward, and then reaccelerate toward the next one. Now the companion result: endowed progress. Nuns and Dries, in a 2006 paper in the Journal of Consumer Research. 300 car wash loyalty cards. Half the customers got an 8-stamp card starting from 0. The other half got a 10-stamp card pre-stamped with 2. Same real requirement, 8 washes either way. Completion rates: 34% with the head start versus 19% without. That is a 79% relative lift from framing alone. The operational rule that follows is absolute: never onboard a user at 0. The sign-up grant is not a bribe. It is endowed progress toward a named first redemption. You're already 20% of the way to Bangkok. And notice something important: ShopBack cannot use this lever. Cashback has no goal structure to endow. A $5 sign-up bonus is just $5. 5,000 miles is progress. Around the gradient, 3 refinements from the literature. 1. Focus the user's attention on the smaller side of the progress bar, accumulated progress early in the journey, remaining distance late. That's Koo and Fishbach, 2012. 2. Expect the post-milestone dip, the same resetting Kivitz found, and immediately seed the next goal. That's Amir and Arely, 2008. 3. Engineer the first redemption early. Taylor and Neslin, in a 2005 paper in the Journal of Retailing, empirically separated the two effects a reward has. There is points pressure before the reward, people buying more to reach it. And there is a rewarded behavior effect after it, redeemers stay elevated. Redemption is not a cost event. It is a loyalty manufacturing event, and it cannot start until a reward has actually been experienced. This is the scientific case for fly-anywhere-style floor redemptions and small early burns, and the case against the instinct to hoard users toward big redemptions. Next weapon, habit, Wood and Runger, in a 2016 review in the Annual Review of Psychology. Habits are context-cued responses built by repetition in stable contexts, and once formed, they are relatively insensitive to changes in reward value. That last clause is the strategic prize of this entire chapter. The endgame is not users who prefer HeyMax. The endgame is users who open HeyMax before every purchase without deliberating. Once the pre-purchase check is habitual, ShopBack running a 10% weekend promotion stops triggering reevaluation at all, because insensitivity to competitor rewards is the very definition of habit. How long does that take to build? Lally and colleagues, 2010, automaticity plateaus at 66 days on average, with a range from 18 days to 254. So design a 2 to 8 month runway, not a 7-day onboarding. And their data shows a single missed day does not derail habit formation, which is the scientific license for streak-free's mercy. Speaking of which, streaks, the habit scaffold, now have their own peer-reviewed base. Silverman and Barash, in a 2023 paper in the Journal of Consumer Research. Visible intact streaks increase subsequent engagement, broken ones decrease it, and offering repair mitigates the damage. Duolingo's own published numbers, and I'll say this plainly, that is industry data, not scholarship, show users reaching a 7-day streak are 3.6 times more likely to complete their course, and that increasing streak-free's generosity actually lifted daily active users. Forgiveness raises net engagement. Mercy is not softness. It is retention engineering. Then there is variable reward texture. Furster and Skinner, 1957, variable ratio schedules produce the highest, most extinction-resistant response rates. Schultz, Dayan, and Montague, in a 1997 paper in Science, dopamine encodes prediction error, fully predicted rewards stop generating any signal at all. So a flat 2% on everything is, neurologically speaking, a reward that has stopped rewarding. Lumpy, surprising earn events, bonus drops, mystery multipliers keep the signal alive. And here comes the honesty clause, per the gamification meta-analyses, Hammery and colleagues in 2014, Koivisto and Hammery in 2019. The effects are real but context-dependent, and they decay with novelty. So tie the mechanics to genuine progress and measure at 90 days, not 7. The last native weapon, status, Dries and Nuns, in a 2009 paper in the Journal of Consumer Research. Status is relative, and it is structurally manufacturable. Adding a subordinate tier increases the felt status of the tier above it. Enlarging the elite dilutes it. 3 tiers with a deliberately small top mint status value at near zero marginal cost, an entire reward dimension that a flat percentage product simply cannot replicate. But it ships with a warning label. Wagner and colleagues, in a 2009 paper in the Journal of Marketing, demotion hurts asymmetrically more than promotion helps. Demoted customers can end up less loyal than customers who were never elevated at all. So grandfather aggressively and never claw back visibly. This, by the way, is the closest peer-reviewed analog to devaluation damage. File it for Chapter 19, where it points directly at HeyMax's own conduct. And finally, why do loyalty programs pay at all? The segment result that should direct HeyMax's entire acquisition budget. Liu, in a 2007 paper in the Journal of Marketing, using 2 years of longitudinal data, heavy buyers claim the rewards without changing their behavior. Light and moderate buyers gradually buy more and become loyal. Lal and Bell, in 2003, replicated the same asymmetry in groceries. The so-called cherry pickers drive the incremental profit. The translation is pointed. The Miles Hacker community is HeyMax's marketing department and its quality bar. But the economics are made on the casual user, the person who uses ShopBack occasionally and has never thought hard about Miles. That is exactly the user the transition playbook in Part 5 is designed to move. The science stack is now loaded. Before firing it, we need the protagonist's own numbers on the table, honestly. Chapter 10, HeyMax by the numbers. Full disclosure of method before anything else. This chapter distills a 33,700-word independent dossier on HeyMax, researched to July 28, 2026, built entirely from public sources and refreshed for this book. The confidence labels you'll hear, fact, estimate, inference, are the dossier's own. The company, Max Now Private Limited, Singapore, founded in 2023 by 4 engineers laid off from Meta's Singapore office in the late 2022 cuts. The chief executive is Zhou Zijai Liu, formerly of Expedia and an engineering manager at Meta, a man who has personally cycled through more than 100 credit cards and who describes HeyMax internally as the Duolingo for personal finance. With him, Wang Qi, Jialu Zhang, and Sean Dai. The funding history. A $2.6 million seed round led by January Capital in July 2024, then an $11 million Series A led by Peak 15 Partners on January 28, 2026, with angels including Rob Rosenstein, co-founder and chairman of Agoda, and David Lee, former president of Visa Asia Pacific. Total raised $13.6 million. The series a post-money valuation, $50 to $61 million, that's an estimate. Headcount, roughly 30 people as of mid-2026. Markets, Singapore plus Hong Kong, launched November 2025 through the acquisition of Crip, anchored by a Cathay partnership and, in a first for that network, earning on Octopus transit rides. Japan, Taiwan, and Australia are announced for the end of 2026, with, as of July 2026, no visible hiring behind them. That's an inference. The product, 13 ways to earn max miles, affiliate shopping across 800-plus merchants, vouchers, a Visa-linked card maximizer, issuer partnerships like Chocolate Finance's debit card, Singapore bus and rail rides, Hong Kong's Octopus, dining, referrals, campaigns, employee benefits. And coalition inbound. U-points convert to max miles at 3.6 to 1 since June 8, 2026, making HeyMax the miles rail for one of Singapore's largest retail coalitions. 6 ways to spend. One-to-one transfers to roughly 20 airline and hotel programs, Crease Flyer, Asia Miles, Qatar Privilege Club, Flying Blue, Japan Airlines, EVA, Philippine Airlines, Accor, Radisson, and more. Fly anywhere, book any flight on any airline and get reimbursed at a fixed 1.8 cents per mile, the product that anchors the currency's floor. Gift cards at 1 cent. In-app bookings, and outbound conversion to you at 1 to 3. The traction, users, 50,000 at seed in July 2024, 120,000 by May 2025, 150,000 plus at Series A in January 2026. Annual miles issuance, 500 million plus. Cumulative transaction volume, $200 million plus by May 2025, growing 15 times year-on-year at the time. Revenue, roughly $6 million annualized as of May 2025, up 5 times year-on-year, with the dossier's estimate for fiscal 2026 at $12 to $16 million. The realized affiliate take rate, around 4.6%, that's an estimate, and note, that is nearly double ShopBack's 2.4 to 3.3%, because miles-seeking users shop the higher commission travel and fashion verticals. Blended customer acquisition cost, 12 to 25 Singapore dollars, with payback in 1.5 to 3 months, again, an estimate. That is excellent, and it is structurally excellent. HeyMax pays for growth in a currency it prints at about 1.16 cents and users value at 1.8 cents or more. Now the honest ledger, because this book is not a brochure. App ratings sit at 3.7 out of 5 on both stores, a power user product with a mass market front door. Missing miles tickets are the dominant support category, the same attribution disease as ShopBack's. Monthly active users were last disclosed at 44,500 for the first quarter of 2025 and have been dark for 16 months. That is the number a Series B diligence team will ask for first. User growth decelerated from 140% in the year to May 2025 to 25% over the 8 months to January 2026. The public target of 1 million users by the end of 2026 is, on trajectory, not achievable organically. The dossier's estimate is 220 to 280,000. The transfer partner count went backwards, from 30 plus down to roughly 20, when the Cash for Miles product was wound down on June 1, 2026, and 17 partners were removed. American, United, British Airways, Qantas, Emirates, Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt among them. Those partners were charging up to 3.5 US cents per mile, which the economics simply could not bear. And there have been 3 value cuts in 12 months. The chocolate finance earn was halved in July 2025. Cash for Miles was killed in June 2026. And the Accor transfer was cut 33%, with 8 days' notice, in July 2026. The terms of use permit all of it. Miles are not held on trust. Balances can be removed after 12 months of inactivity despite the never-expire marketing, and rates can change at sole discretion. The dossier's verdict, which I endorse and will return to in Chapter 19, is that the gap between the marketing promise and the legal reality is HeyMax's largest untreated reputational risk. Because HeyMax's whole brand is being the currency that doesn't betray you. Finally, the 2 products that define the next act. First, HeyMax First, launched July 2026, the self-described world's first miles upfront membership. Draw up to 1 million miles before earning them, repay through ordinary earning, no deadline. Tiers run from free to 1,999 Singapore dollars per year, pricing the advanced miles at 2.3 to 3 cents against the 1.8 cent floor. Structurally, this is selling gross merchandise volume commitment and calling it a membership. Even the worst case is cash positive, dossier estimate. But the risks are real, and Chapter 19 owns them. Adverse selection, motivation collapse after pre-consumption, and the ugly optics of members holding negative balances in a currency that just devalued. Second, the business-to-business platform, Stripe for Miles, as the pitch goes, 1 API, 30-plus airlines and hotels. And here lives the crucial economic distinction. On the consumer side, HeyMax is a price taker. It accepts whatever merchants pay. On the business side, it is a price setter. It names the price of a mile, around 1.4 cents, against a cost of about 1.16 cents. That side is roughly 19 to 20% of revenue today, an estimate. The dossier's single most important strategic sentence is this. Getting the price-setting share of revenue above half is the difference between the loyalty infrastructure of Asia and a well-executed affiliate business with a clever rewards wrapper. Chapter 11, The Currency Spread. This is the chapter where the commissioned question finally gets its economic answer. Up to now, I've given you the psychology and the company histories. Now, I want to put the 2 business models side by side and just let the arithmetic talk. Start with ShopBack. $1 of cashback costs ShopBack exactly $1. That sentence sounds trivial, but it is the whole story. Cashback is a pass-through of merchant commission, at par, in the most fungible substance on earth. Here are the gross economics. ShopBack collects roughly 6 cents of commission for every $1 of gross merchandise value. It hands roughly 3 of those cents to the user as cash. It keeps roughly 2.4 to 3.3 cents to run everything else. And notice what is missing. There is no spread on the reward itself. There cannot be. Cash has a market price of exactly cash. Now HeyMax. A max mile costs HeyMax about 1.16 cents fully loaded, and let me flag that clearly. That is an estimate. Users value that same mile at 1.8 cents at the floor and at 2.5 to 3.5 cents at the premium transfer sweet spots. Follow the implication. When HeyMax rewards a user with $1's worth of miles, measured at perceived value, it actually spends roughly 55 to 65 cents. The other 35 to 45 cents is the currency spread. This is the same seigniorage engine that lets airlines sell miles to banks at 2 cents apiece when those miles cost a fraction of a cent to honor, scaled down to a startup. Where does the spread come from? 3 sources, and all 3 are documented in the loyalty industry's own filings. Source 1 is the wholesale to retail gap on redemption. Transfers and bookings cost HeyMax less than the value the user perceives. Source 2 is breakage. The dossier models 25% of miles never being redeemed, and I will speak the honesty clause out loud. HeyMax's cumulative redemption was only around 10% as of May 2025, and that number will rise as the program matures. Source 3 is float. Miles sit through a 90-day maturation window, plus however long the user waits before redeeming. From that spread, 3 practical consequences cascade. These 3 are the whole strategic ballgame. Consequence 1, HeyMax can outreward ShopBack per dollar of cost. The same merchant commission that funds 3% cashback can fund miles the user perceives as worth 4.5 to 6%, not through generosity, through arithmetic. And remember what the psychology chapters established. Points motivate more per unit of value. That is medium maximization. The economics now add a second fact. Each unit of perceived value also costs less to deliver. Those 2 effects multiply together. That is the compounding advantage. Consequence 2, HeyMax's marketing budget is denominated in its own currency. Think about every growth lever from the science chapters, sign-up grants, referral bonuses, endowed progress, streak rewards. HeyMax pays for all of them in miles that cost 1.16 cents against a perceived value of 1.8 cents or better. ShopBack's equivalent levers are paid in cash, at par. So when you see HeyMax acquiring customers at 12 to 25 Singapore dollars each, with payback inside a single quarter, that is not luck. That is the spread expressing itself in the acquisition line. Consequence 3. The spread funds what this model needs most, the aspirational ceiling. ShopBack cannot afford to gift anyone a business class dream because for ShopBack $1 is $1. HeyMax can build the entire endowed progress, goal gradient machine, head starts, milestone bonuses, first redemption pushes at roughly half the cash cost of face value. Against all of that, deploy honesty because the spread has a dark twin, the liability. Every issued, unredeemed mile is a promise. Here is the dossier's model. Roughly 700 million miles outstanding by July of 2026. Assume 75% of those miles are ultimately redeemed at about 1.55 cents per redeemed mile, and you get roughly $6.2 million of expected future fulfillment cost. Sit with that number. It is 56% of every dollar HeyMax has ever raised, and it appears in no press release. And underneath, it sits a 2 books problem. For fiscal year 2026, estimated EBITDA is positive $2.6 million on a cash basis and negative $1.2 million on an accrual basis under IFRS 15. Why the gap? Because issuing a mile books the cash today and the cost tomorrow. So the spread is real, but only if the redemption rate and the cost per redeemed mile behave. Which is why the dossier's first operating instruction is to build a genuine actuarial model of the liability. And it is why every devaluation that quietly manages that liability spends the very trust the currency runs on. The spread is a privilege. And privileges are revocable by your own customers. One more comparison completes the picture, the take rate. HeyMax's realized take rate is around 4.6%, ShopBack's is 2.4 to 3.3. Why the difference? Miles chasers shop travel and premium verticals where commissions are fat. Cashback's mass market shops electronics and marketplaces where commissions are thin. The Mile Lion's arithmetic on the U conversion makes the same point from the consumer side. Singapore's miles enthusiasts demonstrably give up half a cent, 0.5 cents, of cash value per point in order to get miles they price at 1.8 cents. Do the division, and it means they value a mile at roughly 3.6 times its cash equivalent face value. The YouGov survey, which I take on in the next chapter, says the miles segment is a minority. The unit economics say it is the right minority: highest take rate, highest willingness to pay, and the highest revenue per user, at about $135 per active user per year. That last figure, again, is an estimate. Hold that tension in mind: a minority audience carrying majority-grade economics, because the next chapter is about exactly that. Chapter 12, what the market data actually says. Time to face the survey that motivated this whole brief, and then to surround it with the data that reframes it. The uncomfortable fact comes first. YouGov Singapore, May 2024, a nationally representative sample of 1,025 respondents. The finding: cashback is Singapore's most popular reward type. Miles ranks joint 10th. Let that land. That is the mass market speaking, and it is exactly why ShopBack's model prints users. Any strategy that pretends Singaporeans secretly love miles more than cash is fantasy. HeyMax will never outpoll cashback with the median consumer. And, per Jeffrey, 2009, on stated versus revealed preference, it does not need to. The plan has to work with what I would call a minority preference, majority value currency. Keep that phrase in mind as I walk through the reframing data, in ascending order of strategic weight. First reframe: the hybrid model is already proven at scale by the biggest names in commerce. United States Airlines have run Earn Miles for shopping portals since 2005. A-Advantage eShopping, Mileage Plus Shopping, their peers. All powered white label by a company called Cartera, which was acquired by Partnerize in 2022. These portals run as pure profit engines for programs with over 100 million members. Kanta's Shopping runs the same machine in ShopBack's second market, paying 1 to 4 points per dollar, complete with a browser extension that mimics Honey's mechanics. And here is the one that should end the debate. Rakuten, the largest cashback portal in the United States, has offered its members a choice, cashback, or American Express membership rewards points since 2019. It later added Bilt points as a third option. So the world's most successful cashback company has run the cash or transferable points toggle for 7 years, and it keeps expanding the program. Amex runs it as a major acquisition channel. The conclusion: Shop for Miles is not a speculative category. It is a 2-decade-old, profitable, airline and Amex-endorsed machine, one that nobody had unbundled into an independent, multi-airline app in Southeast Asia, until HeyMax. Second reframe: among consumer apps, the points native ones are the ones that scaled. Remember Chapter 2's Graveyard, Pure Cashback died. Meanwhile, look at what thrived. Bilt Rewards, which turns rent into transferable points, raised at a $10.75 billion valuation in July of 2025. That valuation more than tripled in 11 months, on roughly $1 billion of projected revenue. Fetch Rewards, which turns receipts into points, runs 12.5 million monthly active users and a revenue run rate of roughly $500 million. The market's revealed preference among business models is unambiguous. The aspirational currency apps command the valuations. The cashback apps command the write-offs. Third reframe, and this one is about trust. Southeast Asia has been educated expensively about closed-loop points. Consider Grab. By my count from the record, Grab devalued or degraded its rewards program 6 documented times in 6 years. In 2020, earn rates were cut by up to 60%. In 2021, card earning was halved. In 2022, it was eliminated entirely. In 2023, the platinum tier was abolished, and the KrisFlyer transfer rate was cut by 30%. And in 2025 came the rename to Grab Coins, valued at 0.2 cents, now with expiry dates. Shopee coins, meanwhile, expire monthly and exit nowhere. Every one of those super app nerfs teaches the region's consumers the same lesson. Points that live inside one company's walls rot. That is precisely the fear that HeyMax's open-loop, one-to-one transferable architecture answers. And it cuts both ways. It is why HeyMax's own 3 devaluations, which I cover in Chapter 19, are strategically radioactive in a way they would not be for anyone else. The whole moat is being the exception. Fourth reframe, the one with the most strategic weight, the coalition signal. In June of 2026, the two-way U-Bridge went live. That is a 5 million member coalition currency flowing into max miles at 3.6 to 1 and flowing back out at 1 to 3, with HeyMax capturing a 16.7% round-trip spread. I should be clear, that spread figure is an inference, not a disclosed number. But the deal shape is the point. It is evidence of the endgame position, coalitions, banks, and closed programs plugging into HeyMax as the aspirational exit ramp they cannot build for themselves. Think about it from the coalition side. Grocery points feel like couponing. Bolt on a miles rail, and the coalition buys aspiration at zero infrastructure cost, while HeyMax buys distribution at near-zero customer acquisition cost. That deal shape is repeatable, roughly one coalition per market. And it is something neither ShopBack nor Ascenda can offer, for reasons the next chapters make precise. So assemble the full market picture. A mass market that says cashback, but that behaves better under points mechanics than it predicts it will. A high-value minority that prices miles at 3.6 times cash. A proven, 20-year-old hybrid model validated by the airlines, by Amex, and by Rakuten itself. A region freshly and repeatedly burned by closed-loop currencies. And a coalition layer actively looking for an exit ramp. Read that picture as a strategist, and one conclusion falls out. That is not a market where you fight ShopBack head-on for the cashback crowd. The survey says you would lose that fight, and the survey is right. That is a market where you become the other thing, the only credible open currency in the region, and let the positioning do the work. The mass market can keep telling you it prefers cashback. The high-value minority keeps paying a premium for miles. The coalitions keep needing an exit ramp only an open currency can provide. And ShopBack's own users, sitting on cash rebates that dissolve into their checking accounts, start to feel ambivalent about their winnings. That ambivalence, not a preference poll, is the opening the rest of this book exploits. Chapter 13, where ShopBack cannot follow. Good strategy is not a list of things to do. It is a position the opponent cannot copy without hurting itself. Judo, not sumo. So before I hand you the playbook, this chapter is the counterpositioning analysis. The question on the table, which HeyMax moves would ShopBack have to break itself to imitate? Move 1 it cannot copy, the currency itself. Walk through what ShopBack would actually have to do to issue a transferable miles currency. First, it would have to build or rent a 20-airline transfer network. Its rails would almost certainly be Ascenda, which means adding another mouth to feed, another margin taker, on a take rate of just 2.4 to 3.3%. Second, it would have to accept that every mile it issues replaces cashback its users already expect. That is an internal cannibalization war, fought inside its own product. Third, and this is the decisive one, it would have to carry a growing deferred liability on a balance sheet that already shows negative $230 million of equity, in the middle of an IPO process whose entire pitch is clean, simple, improving EBITDA. Put yourself in that boardroom. An IPO track company does not add an opaque, IFRS 15 deferred, actuarially modeled currency liability to its books 18 months before listing. Which means the window during which ShopBack structurally cannot respond in kind is precisely its pre-IPO window, roughly now through 2027. I want to flag this as the single most important timing fact in this entire book. Move 2 it cannot copy, the aspirational brand register. Think back to the Kivitz and Simonson entitlement research, the earned trophy, the feeling of you earned this trip. ShopBack's 11 years of brand equity say the opposite thing: cash equals real. Its January 2026 billion-dollar milestone messaging leaned hard into liquidity as identity. And here is the branding law that matters. Brands can stretch, but they cannot invert. The company whose promise is, "It's your money," cannot simultaneously argue, "Money is forgettable and dreams are better," not without unwinding its own moat. So HeyMax can own the entire emotional territory of aspiration, uncontested. Move 3, it cannot copy: the coalition hub position. Ask why you chose HeyMax as its miles rail. Because HeyMax is a currency, neutral to any single retailer, with an airline exit ramp attached. ShopBack has nothing to plug a coalition into. Converting U points into cashback is just a worse discount. And notice the asset that follows from holding an open currency: network effects. Every new transfer partner, every new coalition, raises the value of every existing balance. That asset is available only to the party holding the currency. ShopBack does have an equivalent asset, the Westpac-style bank hub, and it is real, but it is rented. It lives inside a partner's channel, at the partner's pleasure. Move 4, it cannot copy cheaply: the take rate mix. HeyMax's realized take of around 4.6% is not a pricing trick. It reflects who miles attract: travel shoppers and premium vertical shoppers. ShopBack's 20 million active users skew toward marketplaces and electronics, where commissions are thin. For ShopBack to capture HeyMax's mix, it would need HeyMax's users. And to get HeyMax's users, it would need HeyMax's currency. Which brings us right back to move 1. Now the honest part: what ShopBack can do, and I want to take it seriously. It can rent the capability. An Ascenda-powered toggle that says, "Take your cashback as crease flyer miles," is technically a quarter's worth of work. The dossier's own warning puts it bluntly. ShopBack, quote, "could buy airline partnerships from Ascenda in a quarter." So what are the defenses? Speed and lock-in, preferential or outright exclusive airline terms, multi-year coalition contracts, and making max miles the established aspirational standard before ShopBack's IPO clears and its hands untie. There is also a precedent that should lower the panic level: Rakuten and Amex. A bolt-on points option on a cashback brand turned out to be an acquisition channel for the points issuer, not a conversion of the cashback brand. Rakuten's toggle made Amex stronger. It did not make Rakuten aspirational. So even if ShopBack eventually rents a miles toggle, the miles still have to come from somewhere. HeyMax's job is to fight to be the only sensible somewhere. Chapter 18's disintermediation race against Ascenda is partly about exactly this. One more asymmetry, straight from the funding files, and it is the right note to end on. ShopBack has raised roughly $350 million and needed 11 years to reach adjusted EBITDA positive. HeyMax has raised $13.6 million and reached profitability on a cash basis, and I keep flagging that qualifier deliberately, on about $6 million of revenue in 2.5 years. Run the efficiency math. That is 44 cents of revenue for every dollar raised, against an APAC consumer fintech median of 15 to 25 cents. Both of those figures are dossier estimates, so treat them as directional, but the direction is unmistakable. Step back and look at what this chapter actually established. 4 positions: the currency, the brand register, the coalition hub, the take rate mix, that ShopBack cannot occupy without breaking something it needs: its balance sheet, its brand promise, its business model, or its user base. One genuine threat, the rented toggle, with named defenses and a calendar attached to them, and a resource asymmetry that says the fight is affordable. David does not need Goliath's budget. The spread pays for the sling. That is the terrain. The next 2 chapters are the playbook you run on it. First, how to switch a ShopBack user, then how to keep them. Chapter 14, The Transition Playbook, Part 1, The Switch. Here is the commissioned question at its most practical. How do you move a ShopBack user, concretely, this quarter? What follows is the funnel, mechanism by mechanism, and every tactic in it is anchored to a study from Part 3 of this book. Start with target selection. The anchors here are Liu 2007 and Lal and Bell 2003. The instruction: do not build this campaign for Miles hackers. They multi-home anyway, they free ride on rewards, and their behavior does not change. Build it instead for the light to moderate ShopBack user. Picture this person. Has the app. Uses it occasionally. Holds a small pending balance. Remembers the last time a cashback claim was rejected. The loyalty literature's most replicated result says this is the only segment programs actually move. And the segment is enormous. Look at the register to active gap. ShopBack has 35 million registered users against 20 million active. Cash Rewards reports 75% of its base inactive. That gap is a public census of lightly attached cashback users. Next, the offer architecture. The anchors: Nuns and Dries 2006 in the Journal of Consumer Research, Champagner 2007, and Kahneman 1990. The rule: never run a generic sign-up bonus. The switch offer is an endowed, named, expiring head start. In practice, it sounds like this. 5,000 max miles are already in your account. You are 20% of the way to a Bangkok flight. Count the peer-reviewed effects stacked inside that one sentence. Endowed progress: 34% completion versus 19% in the original car wash experiment. The zero price effect: demand jumps discontinuously at free. Instant endowment: willingness to accept roughly doubles the moment you hold the asset. And loss framing on the expiry: this is a starter balance you will lose. 4. Documented effects in a single grant, paid in a currency that costs 1.16 cents on the perceived dollar. 1. Refinement: give the head start a reason, because you're switching from cashback. The endowed progress follow-up studies show a stated reason strengthens the effect. Then the message. Anchors: Milkman and Bashir's 2009, ARC's 1994, Agarwal and colleagues 2010, and Soman 1998. The campaign line this book has been building toward is a single question: what did your cashback become? The field data behind it says small windfalls dissolve. A $10 windfall becomes about $1.59 of atypical grocery spending. Cashback users end the year with nothing to point at. There is a sharper blade available, and it should be used carefully. It comes from a working paper, so attribute it as a working paper. The Chicago Fed analysis found that an average of $25 in cashback was associated with $79 more in monthly spending and $191 more in monthly debt. Spoken plainly, cashback works on you, not for you. And the Soman rebate illusion result licenses a direct funnel attack. Publish the arithmetic of effective cashback: tracked, minus rejected, minus expired, minus never withdrawn, against miles that credit automatically. ShopBack's own complaint boards write this ad for free. Now the timing. The anchor is Dye, Milkman, and Rez, 2014, in Management Science, and I verified the full text of this one. Aspirational behavior surges at temporal landmarks. Gym attendance rises 33% at the start of a new week and 47% at a new semester. Searches for the word diet jump 82% at New Year. So launch switch campaigns at New Year. This year you actually fly, at birthdays, on Mondays, and in post-holiday windows. And add one engineered landmark HeyMax controls outright: the user's miles anniversary. Notice the asymmetry. ShopBack's utilitarian pitch has no landmark resonance. A dream product does. This is free targeting alpha, straight out of a management science paper. Then the channel. The anchor: Schmidt, Sciarra, and Van Den Bolt, 2011. The instruction: referral above paid acquisition. The German bank field study found referred customers are at least 16% more valuable, with a retention edge that persists over time. And look at the mechanism the authors identify: context match peers, a relational tie from day one. That is exactly the shape of HeyMax's Telegram community. One hard rule follows: pay referral bonuses in miles, never in cash. A cash referral bonus is just income, and it is directly comparable to ShopBack's. A miles bonus does double duty. It is endowed progress for the person being referred and a deepened switching cost for the person referring. Both sides of the referral get more locked in by the very act of referring. Finally, the capture. Anchors: Johnson and Goldstein, 2003, full text verified, and Samuelson and Zeckhauser, 1988. Once the user lands, deploy the largest lever in behavioral science: defaults. The organ donation data is the cleanest demonstration on record. Opt-in participation ran 4 to 27%. Opt-out ran 86 to 99.98%. The ranges do not even overlap. Now translate that into product. Auto-earn on the linked card as the default state. The convert partner cashback to max miles setting pre-checked. Auto-enrollment in the streak and in the named goal at sign-up. Every choice left to active opt-in forfeits a default-sized effect. And here is the elegant part. Once these defaults are in place, status quo bias flips from enemy to ally. The moment HeyMax is the incumbent routine, the same inertia that protected ShopBack for 11 years starts protecting HeyMax instead. So that is the switch funnel end-to-end. Target the lightly attached middle, not the hackers. Offer an endowed, named, expiring head start, never a generic bonus. Ask what their cashback became with the arithmetic to back it. Time it to landmarks. Route it through referral, paid in miles, and capture it with defaults. Every step is a published finding wearing a product decision. What the funnel wins, though, retention has to keep, and that is the next chapter. Chapter 15, The Transition Playbook, Part 2, The Keep. Switching is an event. The business is retention. This chapter takes the science stack from Chapter 9 and turns it into an operating system, presented in the order a new user actually experiences it. Day 0. The rule, never at 0. The endowed starter balance from the last chapter lands inside a named goal with a progress bar. Not 5,000 miles, 20% to Bangkok. Feel the difference between those two sentences. One is an account balance, the other is a journey already underway. The goal itself is picked from a menu at onboarding. That is the seed experiment's self-set goal, the commitment device the user chooses rather than receives. And the progress bar should obey coup and fishbox finding on framing. Early in the journey, emphasize accumulated progress, already 20% there. Past the halfway mark, switch to remaining distance, only 12,000 to go. Week 1. The job, the first reward experience. Taylor and Neslin's result says the rewarded behavior effect, the loyalty lift that follows a reward, cannot begin until a reward is actually felt. So manufacture an early, small, real redemption. A miles plus cash discount, which uses Dries and nuns on combined currency pricing, a price split across two currencies feels cheaper than either pure price. A gift card microburn, a lounge pass. I want to name the instinct this corrects, because it is common and it is backwards. The instinct to hoard users toward one big flight. The data says a taste of redemption is what manufactures loyalty. And this is precisely why Fly Anywhere's floor exists, so that small balances are never worthless. Weeks 1 through 9. This is the habit runway, and the anchor is Lally's habit formation study. 66 days on average to automaticity, with a range of 18 to 254 days. Pick one behavior to automate, exactly one. Check HeyMax before you buy. Build it the way the habit literature says habits are built. A stable cue, the checkout moment. A consistent response, open the app or the extension. An immediate reinforcer, the earn animation, which is the temptation bundled want attached to the should. Streak scaffold the repetition, but with mercy engineered in. Streak freezes, streak repair. Both the streaks paper in the Journal of Consumer Research and Duolingo's on a B-test data show that forgiveness mechanics increase net engagement. And Lally's single missed day result, one missed day did not derail habit formation, licenses the mercy scientifically. 2 operational consequences follow. Run a 60-day activation program, not a 7-day onboarding. And measure retention at 90 days, per the honesty clause in the gamification meta-analyses. Next, the texture of earning. The rule, lumpy, not flat. The anchors are Skinner on variable reinforcement and Schultz on dopamine. Random bonus drops, mystery multipliers, surprise category boosts. The neuroscience is blunt on this point. A fully predictable reward is, neurologically speaking, no reward at all. Dopamine responds to the unexpected. ShopBack's flat percentages are dopaminergically silent. HeyMax's earn events should never be. Then the ladder, status with a small top. The anchor is Dries and Nunn's 2009, 3 tiers, a deliberately scarce summit. And here is the counterintuitive part of that paper. The subordinate tiers do psychological work, their existence elevates everyone above them. Status is a reward dimension minted from pure structure at near zero marginal cost. It is one more thing a flat cashback percentage simply cannot be. But weld on the warning from Wagner and colleagues, no visible demotions, and grandfather aggressively. Status taken away costs more loyalty than status given ever bought. Under all of it, the floor, identity. The anchors are Oyserman, 2009, and Burnham and colleagues, 2003. The switching cost typology says retention rests on 3 kinds of cost: procedural, financial, and relational. Now notice which of those a competitor can attack. ShopBack can match a bonus that neutralizes the financial cost. It can copy a user interface that neutralizes the procedural cost. What it cannot do is make someone stop being a miles person. Relational cost is the only one a competitor cannot refund away. In HeyMax's case, that means the 10,000-member Telegram group, the community deal hunting, the ambassador hire, the shared vocabulary. That is the moat's final layer, and the only one graded copy proof in the dossier's moat audit. The operating instruction follows directly. Fund the community like infrastructure, not like marketing. And underneath everything, the commitment framing. The anchor is Ashraf, Carlin, and Yin, the commitment savings field experiment. The frame, this is the account you can't raid. HeyMax should say it plainly in product. This balance is your travel fund. It doesn't leak into groceries. That's the point. Because here is the peer-reviewed answer to the most common objection HeyMax will ever hear. That cashback is more flexible. Flexibility is precisely what present-biased savers pay to remove. In that experiment, 28% of a bank's customers voluntarily took the illiquid account, and they saved 81 percentage points more than the control group. The inflexibility is not a bug in the Miles model. For the person trying to reach a goal, it is the entire product. Step back and see the whole system in sequence. Day 0, a named goal, never an empty balance. Week 1, a felt redemption, not a distant promise. Weeks 1 through 9, one habit, cued, reinforced, and forgiven when it slips. Ongoing, lumpy rewards that stay neurologically alive, a status ladder with a scarce summit and no demotions, an identity community funded like infrastructure, and a commitment frame that turns the flexibility objection into the sales pitch. None of it is a gimmick. Every layer is a published effect, sized in the literature, translated into a product decision. ShopBack can copy any single feature on this list. What it cannot copy is the system, because the system runs on a currency ShopBack cannot issue, sold to an identity ShopBack cannot claim. That is the keep. And with the switch and the keep in hand, the next chapter compresses the whole campaign into 5 moves. Chapter 16, The 5 Moves Against ShopBack. Everything this book has built so far, the 6-cent economics, the graveyard, ShopBack's dossier, the psychology, HeyMax's currency spread, the transition playbook, now assembles into a single campaign. 5 moves in sequence. Each one has an evidence base, and each one comes with a matching don't. Let me walk through them. Move 1, refuse the cashback war. Do not match rebate rates. Do not try to out-bonus ShopBack. Do not brand fight for the title of best cashback. The graveyard chapter is the evidence here. A 6-cent pie funds exactly 1 winner per market, and the number 2 pure cashback player dies. Cash rewards died. Quidco died. Drop died. ShopKick died. The one lean survivor, top cashback, gets by on operating costs of roughly £1 per member, a cost structure HeyMax cannot replicate and frankly should not want to. And here is the deeper logic. Every dollar HeyMax spends fighting on ShopBack's axis is a dollar spent proving ShopBack's brand promise. The counterposition is the other currency. Full stop. Move 2, run the switch machine on the light user ocean. This is Chapter 14's funnel, the endowed, named head starts, the windfall dissolution messaging, the fresh start timing, referrals denominated in miles, and defaults doing the capture work, pointed at one very specific target. There is a 15 million strong gap between ShopBack's registered users and its active users. That gap sits inside ShopBack's own base, and it is the ocean this machine fishes in. The timing matters just as much as the targeting. The campaign runs in the pre-IPO window, when ShopBack's ability to counterspend is constrained by its own prospectus grooming. And the success metric, following Liu's research on light users, is emphatically not installs. It is activated light users who complete a first redemption inside 90 days. Count that, and only that. Move 3. Lock the supply while the incumbent's hands are tied. That means direct, preferential, and where possible exclusive terms with the airline and hotel programs that matter in this region: Crease Flyer, Asia Miles, JAL, Qatar, Flying Blue. The direct editions of 2026 are the template. The job is to extend it. On top of the airlines, add one coalition per market, built on the U template. Why does this move rank so high? Because every exclusive rail pays 3 ways at once. It is margin recovered from Ascenda. That fight is Chapter 18. It is a buffer against devaluation. And it is a brick in the wall against ShopBack's someday toggle, the day the incumbent finally decides to run a miles option of its own. The dossier's triple payoff assessment stands. Nothing else in this plan pays 3 ways at the same time. Move 4. Weaponize trust, theirs and yours. Look at what the incumbents have done in public. The region's closed-loop currencies have committed serial devaluation. Openly, Grab has done it 6 times. ShopBack's model carries chronic attribution complaints, and it paid fines that worked out to essentially nothing per user for a breach that exposed 20 million users. And Cashback as a category quietly profits from forgetting. Ibotta charges a dormancy fee of $3.99, and that is not a rumor, it is in an SEC filing. Against that record, HeyMax's counterasset must be provable currency integrity. Not claimed, provable. Publish a value charter. 60 days notice for any change to the currency. The Fly Anywhere floor of 1.8 cents held up as a public commitment and honored in flight first drawdowns. And fix the contradiction first. The marketing says the miles never expire. The legal terms permit expiry. Repair the terms before marketing rights checks the legal text bounces. One warning on this move: it is only available if the house cleaning I describe in Chapter 19 actually happens. A 4th devaluation vaporizes it. Move 5. Buy the missing data and aim with it. Across all the research for this book, 3 genuine gaps kept surfacing. There is no public split of Singapore card volume between cashback cards and miles cards. There is no measurement of how many ShopBack users multi-home with Miles apps, and there is no data on how Rakuten members elect between cash and points. So commission the survey. A Milieu class or YouGov class study costs a few $1,000s and would measure multi-homing, switching triggers, and how each customer segment actually values a mile. That single purchase is 3 assets at once. It is targeting ammunition for the switch machine. It is narrative evidence for the Series B, proof that the miles minority outmonetizes its ranking in the preference polls. And if the results are strong, it is publishable marketing. Cheap, unclaimed, decisive. Now the don'ts, and they come from exactly the same evidence base as the moves. Don't chase the 1 million user vanity target with paid customer acquisition. Cash Rewards already ran that controlled experiment at 35 Australian dollars per member, and it was a death spiral. The lesson is written in a liquidation, not a slide deck. Don't launch 3 consumer markets simultaneously. ShopBack's own internal memo about its focus problem is the cautionary document. The incumbent has already published the case study of what happens when a small company points itself in too many directions at once. Don't let the miles pool inside HeyMax first become a growth metric. The dossier called that pool a subprime lending book, and the warning stands. Advancing value against future earning is a feature to govern, not a number to celebrate. And don't devalue again, not this year. Ideally, not ever. Every other move in this chapter assumes the currency is credible. A fourth cut spends the asset the whole plan is built on. Step back, and the campaign has a shape. Refuse the war the incumbent wants to fight, because the evidence says the loser of that war is whoever shows up to it second. Poach the user's ShopBack registered but never activated, while the IPO ties its hands. Lock the airline rails and the coalition partners before anyone else values them properly. Turn trust into a weapon by being provably trustworthy in a category that is provably not. And spend a few $1,000s on a survey so every one of those moves is aimed rather than sprayed. 5 moves, 4 don'ts, 1 clock, and the clock, remember, is set by ShopBack's own listing timetable, not by anything HeyMax controls. That closes the case against the first commissioned opponent. The second one is stranger because HeyMax pays it money. That company is Ascenda, and it is where we go next. Chapter 17. Ascenda, the rival on the rails. The second commissioned opponent is stranger than the first for one simple reason: HeyMax pays it money. Ascenda is 3 things at the same time. It is HeyMax's supplier. It is HeyMax's competitor. And it is HeyMax's involuntary business school case on what the infrastructure endgame is actually worth. Let me take those in order, starting with the company itself. Ascenda Loyalty is a Singapore private limited company, founded in 2013 by Kyle Armstrong, the chief executive, and Sebastian Grobies, formerly of American Express. It actually launched consumer-facing as a hotel booking site called Caligo that paid out miles. The business-to-business arm, Caligo Solutions, rebranded to Ascenda around 2019. Today, the company runs offices in New York, Singapore, Ho Chi Minh City, and Sydney, with more than 200 staff across more than 10 countries, roughly 255 people, if you go by Traxon's count. And note one unusual detail: Ascenda is essentially bootstrapped. There is no disclosed venture funding of any consequence and no published valuation. Its core asset is TransferConnect, the points exchange network that connects bank currencies to airline and hotel programs. Ascenda describes it as the only global hub connecting banks and major merchants for seamless rewards currency conversion, with dozens of transfer partners. A caveat here, spoken plainly. The company's earlier press claims said 50-plus partners, and a 100-plus figure sometimes gets cited, but I could not verify that larger number. Treat it as unsupported. Now the client roster, and I want to state this fairly because underestimating this company would be malpractice. The roster is genuinely elite: American Express, HSBC through the Travel One card, CD, Barclays, Standard Chartered, Capital One. TransferConnect powers venture miles transfers, and that deal is what legitimized Ascenda in the United States. Robinhood's Gold Card in 2024. Ramp also 2024. Brex back in 2019. Bunk in 2025. Cardless. Galileo. OCBC HDFC ICBC Commonwealth Bank. And on the supply side, contracts with Crease Flyer, British Airways, Emirates, Qatar, Flying Blue, Marriott, IHG, and added in September 2025, Hilton. That is a decade of bank-grade references, and no startup can match it quickly. I want that on the record before I say a single critical word. With the company established, here are the 3 strategic facts from 2024 through 2026 that define this battlefield. Fact 1, the pivot. Visit Ascenda's homepage in 2026, and it no longer sells loyalty software. It sells merchants access to 200 million high-value bank customers. That is the language of a two-sided commerce network, not a plumbing vendor. Now look at the hiring spree of 2024 and 2025. A chief commercial officer, a chief product officer, senior vice presidents from Amex, Chase, and Wells Fargo, and Paul Smitten, the former chief executive of Asia Miles, installed as President International. This is a company rebuilding itself around demand generation. Read it plainly. Ascenda has publicly concluded that plumbing alone is not enough, and it is moving toward HeyMax's differentiator, while owning 0 consumers of its own. The market's most credentialed infrastructure player just validated HeyMax's thesis with its own repositioning. That is, in my view, the single most important sentence in this chapter. Fact 2, the price capitulation. In October 2024, Ascenda abolished all setup and platform fees. In its own words, it now charges only for content and growth outcomes actually delivered. And in that same year, its net sales fell 5.84%. That figure comes from a CRA-derived data compiled in the dossier. Put those two facts together. A company giving up its software revenue line while shrinking is doing defensive pricing under margin pressure. The move removes the procurement objection for banks, yes, but it also tells you exactly where all the money in this business now lives, the spread on rewards content. Nowhere else. Fact 3, the marquee win, and it landed inside HeyMax's expansion market. On April 27, 2026, DBS launched points transfers, DBS dollars flowing into frequent traveler programs, powered by Ascenda. Hong Kong first, with additional launches in other markets across the group explicitly signposted. If that rollout reaches DBS in Singapore, Ascenda's rails will sit inside the biggest bank of HeyMax's home market. The clock on the next chapter's window is this deal and nothing else. And now the economics of the category, the part I think every airline, every bank, and every investor should be made to stare at. The only points exchange business that ever published audited financials is Points International, the longtime category leader, and I pulled its numbers directly from SEC filings. At its 2019 peak, revenue of $401 million at a 16.3% gross margin, producing roughly $12 million of net income. This was the global number one, with Delta, United, American, and Marriott as clients. And the entire company sold to Plusgrade in 2022 for about $385 million. That is the ceiling. The best that ever did it, fully grown, changed hands for less than $500 million. The distressed comparable is worse. BAC's loyalty unit, the former Bridge 2 Solutions, acquired as part of a deal worth more than $300 million in 2020, was sold in October 2025 for $11 million. From over $300 million to $11 million in 5 years. That is what the runner-up position in this category is worth. So hold the shape of the category in your head. Points exchange infrastructure is a real business with a proven ceiling. Gross margins of 13 to 16%, commodity economics, terminal value under $500 million for the finest company that ever played the game. That is the endgame Ascenda is playing, whether it says so or not. And it is the endgame HeyMax's strategy must refuse, which is precisely the subject of the next chapter, where the wedge goes in and how hard to push it. Chapter 18, Beating Ascenda, the Wedge. HeyMax versus Ascenda is not a symmetric fight, and any honest plan has to respect the asymmetry. So let me say the uncomfortable part first, out loud. In a Tier 1 bank RFP, a DBS class deal, Ascenda wins today. It wins on references. It wins on integration count. It wins on compliance posture. And no amount of startup energy changes that this year. The winnable war is everywhere else, and the evidence from the last chapter says everywhere else is where the value actually is. What follows are 7 angles of attack, each anchored to a documented fact. Angle 1, sell demand, not plumbing, the differentiator Ascenda itself just validated. Remember the pivot. Ascenda's homepage now promises merchants access to other people's customers, 200 million of them, sitting inside its client banks. HeyMax owns its own, more than 150,000 consumers who deliberately chose a Miles currency, plus a live, two-way coalition bridge. The pitch line writes itself. Ascenda rents you someone else's audience. HeyMax brings its own. Every business-to-business deal HeyMax closes should lead with demand generation, the very thing the incumbent's own repositioning admits the market wants, and the very thing its architecture cannot supply. Angle 2, own the mid-market that Ascenda's sales machine cannot afford to serve. Look at how Ascenda sells. Its new hires are ex-Amex and ex-Jace enterprise sellers. Its pricing is custom, contact-only, with no trial. And its mid-market product from 2021, called Nexus, has quietly vanished from its site. Meanwhile, HeyMax already closes comparison sites, fintechs, and employers, SingSaver, Tenity, Chocolate Finance, Atom, Stashaway, in contract cycles no bank RFP process can match. The move is to productize that motion. Public API documentation, published pricing, a sandbox, and a SOC2 roadmap. All four are currently missing per the dossier's gap list, so this is buildable, not aspirational. Become the self-serve loyalty infrastructure while Ascenda goes elephant hunting. This is Stripe versus the enterprise middleware vendors, replayed in loyalty. Angle 3, coalition currency versus white label plumbing. Here is a structural fact about Ascenda's architecture. It builds each client its own closed currency. By design, it cannot offer a shared currency whose value compounds as partners join. HeyMax's Max Miles plus the U-Bridge is exactly that, a live network effects machine, where every added airline raises the value of every U-Point's exit ramp. So replicate the U-template, one coalition per market. The dossier names the candidates, Octopus or MTR in Hong Kong, Ponta or a JCB consortium in Japan, Flybys or Everyday Rewards in Australia. Land those, and HeyMax owns a deal shape Ascenda cannot even bid on. Angle 4, disintermediate the rails, the double payoff race. Every direct airline contract HeyMax signs does two jobs at once. The 2026 roster shows the motion already works. Flying Blue, JAL, Asia Miles, EVA, Philippine Airlines, and Radisson all went direct that year. Job 1, each direct deal reclaims the 13 to 16 point spread that the points international analog proves the exchange layer takes. Job 2, and this is the part I find genuinely striking, each direct deal removes Ascenda's contractual visibility into HeyMax's volumes and partner mix. Think about what that means. Intelligence about HeyMax's business currently flows to a competitor by invoice. The dossier calls direct contracting the company's second-largest profitability lever. Against Ascenda, it is also counterintelligence. Angle 5, exploit the incumbent's margin squeeze. Recall fact 2 from the last chapter. Ascenda cut its fees to zero in the same year its net sales shrank. That is a defender's economics, a company under margin pressure giving up revenue to hold territory. HeyMax, by contrast, monetizes the demand side as well. Affiliate commissions, card referrals, first fees. That blended margin can sustain a mid-market price war that a spread-only infrastructure vendor cannot match without deepening its own revenue decline. In a price war, the side with two revenue streams outlasts the side with one. Angle 6, tell the valuation story to everyone who matters. To airlines choosing partners, to banks choosing vendors, to investors pricing the round. The story is simple, and the last chapter proved it. Pure loyalty infrastructure has a proven ceiling, $385 million for the best that ever did it, $11 million for the runner-up. Meanwhile, consumer plus coalition plus infrastructure, hybrids price like built, at $10.75 billion. HeyMax's equity story is the category argument, and it doubles as a recruiting pitch for the airline strategic investor the dossier recommends bringing into the Series B. Angle 7, move before the DBS rollout metastasizes. The window is explicitly time-boxed, and I want to be precise about why. DBS Hong Kong is live. The group rollout is signposted in the announcement itself. Every quarter of delay raises Ascenda's leverage over the very airline partners HeyMax needs to sign directly. So the mid-market push, the coalition deals, and the direct contracts are all now moves this year, not someday. The Tier 1 banks can wait. They were never this year's fight anyway. And here is the reframe that ties this book's two wars together into a single sentence of strategy. Against ShopBack, HeyMax's weapon is the currency. Against Ascenda, it is the crowd. Hold that symmetry in your head because it is the whole game. ShopBack has 20 million users but no currency anyone dreams about. Ascenda has world-class rails but not a single consumer of its own. HeyMax alone holds both ends of the market, the people and the pipes. It is small, yes. I am not going to pretend 150,000 consumers is an army. but it is the only party in the region whose position gets stronger from both directions at once. Every consumer it adds makes its rails more valuable, and every rail it signs makes its consumers richer. Neither rival can say that. That is the wedge, and the next chapter asks, just as ruthlessly, what could snap it off? Chapter 19, Risks, Counterattacks, and the Glass House. A strategy document that flatters its commissioner is worthless. So this chapter is everything that can break this plan, and I am going to start with the problems HeyMax created for itself, because those are the ones no competitor needed to invent. Risk 1, the liability is the business model's shadow. Roughly 700 million miles outstanding, and I'll say it plainly, that is my estimate, not a disclosed figure. Behind those miles sits roughly $6.2 million of expected fulfillment cost. Again, an estimate, which works out to 56% of all the capital the company has ever raised. Disclosed nowhere. The cumulative redemption rate, roughly 10% as of May 2025, can only rise mechanically as balances mature and behaviorally as users learn to redeem. And then there is the two books problem. On my read, fiscal year 2026 is cash EBITDA a positive and accrual negative at the same time. The arithmetic is unforgiving. Every additional point of redemption rate costs roughly $60,000 a year. The model works at 1.16 cents per issued mile, and it fails at 1.55. So the first operating instruction stands above all strategy: build the actuarial model and publish it. Nothing in chapters 13 through 18 matters if the issuer of the currency does not know what its own currency costs. Risk 2, trust, the moat that HeyMax has been vandalizing. 3 value cuts in 12 months. One of them with 8 days' notice. One cascading into a partner coalition's value chain. All of it against a brand whose entire pitch is being the currency that doesn't rot, marketed as never expiring, on top of legal terms that permit expiry after 12 months of inactivity. The psychology chapter gave us the Wagner demotion asymmetry. Each cut costs more loyalty than the equivalent generosity ever bought. And the grab timeline gave us the endpoint. Serial devaluers become coupon bins. My honest read is that HeyMax is at the outer edge of what its positioning survives. The fly-anywhere floor of 1.8 cents is the credibility itself. Cutting it would be qualitatively different from any prior nerf, the moment the exception becomes just another program. Which is why the value charter is not comms polish. It is structural repair to the moat, and it must come before the marketing that move for proposes, not after. Risk 3, ShopBack's counterattack vectors. The obvious one is the rented toggle, an Ascenda-powered miles option bolted onto ShopBack. The deeper one is a bank hub replay in Singapore, a Westpac-style deal, equity plus integration, with a local bank, distribution no challenger can match. And note that the IPO cuts the other way once it closes. A listed, capitalized ShopBack in 2027 or 2028 has a war chest and a mandate to grow. The pre-IPO window is real, but it closes, and this plan's clock runs on it. Risk 4, the giant's shortcut. The Agoda and MasterCard partnership of January 2026 puts travel redemption inventory directly inside MasterCard's global redemption suite for banks across Asia-Pacific, which is HeyMax's business-to-business pitch, delivered by two parties with vastly more distribution. And Crease Plus could deepen from a lifestyle app into a full shopping portal with Singapore Airlines brand behind it. Now, neither kills the open currency position, Agoda cannot be airline neutral, and Singapore Airlines cannot be open loop, so the counter-positioning holds. But both compress the business-to-business window, and both could crowd the bank channel. Risk 5, regulatory drift. Today, Max Miles lives outside Singapore's Payment Services Act as limited-purpose e-money. But look at the trajectory. Fly Anywhere pays out cash via PayNow. First advances value against future earning, adjacent to Buy Now Pay Later. And general-purpose acceptance keeps widening. The dossiers read, which I share, defensible today, trending toward the boundary. Japan is the heaviest compliance lift of the announced markets, one more argument for entering Japan business-to-business only. and there is no compliance higher among the open roles. This is cheap to fix now and expensive to fix after a letter arrives from the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Risk 6, execution arithmetic. 30 people, 11 open roles, no chief commercial officer, no risk actuary, 3 announced markets with no hiring behind them, and a growth target of 1 million users that the trajectory simply does not support. Put it all together, and the single most likely failure mode in this record is not ShopBack, and it is not Ascenda. It is the ShopBack 2022 disease, too many directions on too little organization. The plan's own sequencing is the treatment, deepen Singapore, execute Hong Kong, enter Japan business-to-business only, go partner-led in Australia in 2027. Holding to that sequence under growth pressure is a discipline this book can prescribe but cannot supply. Finally, and I consider this the most important section of the chapter, what would falsify the strategy itself? I'll give you 5 tripwires. 1. If ShopBack announces a transferable miles currency with a major airline before its IPO, the window logic collapses. 2. If the DBS Group rollout reaches Singapore with coalition currency features attached, the Ascenda Wedge narrows to the mid-market only. 3. If HeyMax's disclosed monthly active users come in under roughly 50,000, or the redemption-adjusted margin goes negative, then the spread was a mirage. 4. If a 4th devaluation lands within a year, the trust asset is spent, and move 4 goes with it. 5. If 2 quarters of switch campaign cohorts show light user activation failing to clear the first redemption bar, then the Liu targeting was wrong for this market. Every one of those is checkable within 12 months. That is deliberate. A strategy that cannot be falsified is astrology with a budget. For the record, I expect none of them to trigger, and I would bet against at most 2. The glass house has cracks, and I have named every one I found. What remains is the verdict. Chapter 20, The Verdict. Let me assemble the whole argument in one final pass. 20 chapters, 1 verdict. Start with the business model, because everything else sits on top of it. The cashback business is a 6-cent pie split too many ways. Its global record, laid out in the graveyard chapter, is 1 disciplined survivor, 1 strategic absorption that worked, and a graveyard. Dead in Australia, dead in Toronto, dead in Silicon Valley's extension wars, 73% down in Denver, $1.4 billion of losses in Atlanta. That is not a run of bad luck. That is the model expressing itself. ShopBack, to its credit, is the best operator that model ever produced in Asia. 13 markets, 20 million actives. A real turnaround since 2024, I documented it, and I meant it. And it is still, when you strip everything away, a business taking roughly 2.4 to 3.3% of each transaction, with negative equity, a stale valuation, chronic attribution complaints, an admitted focus problem, and a currency that costs $1 per dollar and inspires no one. 11 years, and no one has ever dreamed about a ShopBack balance. Then the psychology, the ground where ShopBack was supposed to win. Instant beats delayed, that much is true, and I never denied it. But it turned out to be the shallowest layer of the literature. Go 1 level down and every deeper result points the other way. Medium maximization, earned indulgence, commitment demand, endowed progress, goal gradients, habit insensitivity. All of them, everyone, favor the aspirational currency, and the market evidence agrees with the psychology. The Shop 4 Miles hybrid has printed money for airlines since 2005. Rakuten and Amex have run the cash versus points toggle for 7 years and kept both. And the decade's breakout consumer rewards valuations, Bilt, Fetch, are all points native. Not one is a pure rebate. So what precisely is HeyMax's advantage over ShopBack? It is arithmetic, a reward that costs 1.16 cents to issue and is valued by its users at 1.8 to 3 cents, against a reward that costs $1 and is valued at $1. That spread is the whole war. It funds richer perceived rewards. It funds cheaper acquisition. It funds an aspiration machine the incumbent cannot brand its way into. And it is defended, for now, by an IPO clock that ties the incumbent's hands through roughly 2027. And the advantage over Ascenda? That one is ownership. HeyMax is the only party in the region holding both users and rails, in a category where the infrastructure-only endgame has a proven ceiling of $385 million for the best company that ever played it, while the consumer hybrid endgame trades at built multiples. Ascenda has the references, the integrations, the decade of bank-grade credibility, and zero consumers. Its own pivot toward demand generation is the most credentialed endorsement HeyMax's thesis will ever receive. The strategy, in full, is 5 moves against one rival and 7 angles against the other. But it compresses honestly into a single sentence, and here it is. Be the only credible open currency in the region, locked to the airlines directly, plugged into every coalition, marketed on the documented psychology of progress and earned dreams, aimed at the light user, and defended by currency integrity that is provable rather than promised. Every chapter in this book is a footnote to that sentence. Now, my honest odds for the record and for falsification, because a verdict that risks nothing asserts nothing. All of this is conditional on the discipline described in the last chapter: the liability modeled, the charter published, no fourth cut, and the business-to-business share climbing toward half of revenue. With that discipline, I put HeyMax's chance of owning the region's open currency position by the end of 2028 at roughly 60%. I put its chance of a respectable strategic exit, if the first outcome fails, at most of the remainder, ShopBack buying the currency it never built, or an airline or a bank buying the network, in the dossier's range of $150 to $400 million. And I put the chance of the ugly outcome, the slow affiliate treadmill fade, at maybe 1 in 7. Those are judgment calls, not measurements. I've shown you every input, and you are free to weight them differently. But 60% for a 30-person company staring down a 20 million user incumbent on one side and the best credentialed infrastructure player in the industry on the other is not a hedge. It is a conviction. The commissioned question was how HeyMax beats ShopBack and Ascenda. Notice what the evidence never supported. It never supported out-cashbacking ShopBack, and it never supported out-plumbing Ascenda. Fight ShopBack on rebates, and you fund the incumbent's brand promise with your own marketing budget. Fight Ascenda on enterprise rails, and you race toward a summit the market has already priced below $500 million. Both invitations will keep arriving, from investors who want a familiar comparable, from partners who want a cheaper rebate, from the company's own impatience. The whole discipline of this plan is the refusal. Because the deepest lesson of 20 chapters is that in this industry, the wars you decline decide more than the wars you win. Top Cashback declined the growth war and survived. Rakuten declined the purity war, kept both currencies, and prospered. The graveyard is full of companies that accepted every fight offered to them. Position, in the end, beats posture. So here is the answer the evidence supports, and the sentence I want to leave ringing. HeyMax beats ShopBack and beats Ascenda not by fighting either one on its own ground, but by holding the one position neither of them can reach, and by refusing, with documented, peer-reviewed discipline, every invitation to fight anywhere else. This has been an independent analysis, based entirely on public sources, current as of August 2026. Estimates are labeled as estimates, and nothing in it is financial advice. Thank you for listening.